Now you can hear me. Can you hear me now? What's up? No relation to Bad Beat Slayer. Um, was a very, very good online poker pro back in the day. What's up, everybody? We are at World Senior 2025 50 plus registered. We're registered for the World Senior in October, late October, and all donations will go forward toward that. We're halfway there, basically, almost halfway there. We just need $1.59 to get halfway there. Thanks, guys. So that's gonna be the next tournament. I was gonna play a tournament in August, but I bailed out. I tacoed. So Sako. Slaggy always chickens out. But tonight is analysis stream, so we've got just a couple games so far. Unfortunately, it's been slow in the summertime, and you guys have been lazy. And I'm not getting the submissions that I normally get, like 10 games every week. And a lot of people have this habit of like just coming on and submitting the games late. Luckily, I'm pretty flexible. I've got a game from Asterbait, a game from Yefim Geller. The spelling of that is very Yefim Geller, Yeffim. Interesting. Yefim Geller versus Kogan, and I'm gonna ask a question about that. Kogan is a pretty common name, so I don't know which Kogan it was. That's an interesting question. It's an older game. And then Mule Skinner against Marta. We'll talk about that when we get there. What's up, Asterbait? We've got 6 viewers. So, guys, we're doing analysis stream with subscribers. You have to be a subscriber to Twitch to submit a game. And that can include, of course, if someone else gives you a sub. But in any case, the subscriber stream is for subscribers. This is my way of giving back. Analyzing games with subscribers, their personal games or games they've chosen to select and send in. So this is a chance to analyze seriously. Our first game is Asterbait against Yorkshire Badger. Mr. Coffee's here. Mr. Coffee, what's the news? What's the latest news there? Would you rather die by shark or electrocution? I think that the Trump administration should turn, like, corporal punishment into like a game show. Yeah, I saw that, Mr. Slow. It's a Kogan of 1948. Well, I don't know. I never met. There was an American strong IM named Boris Kogan who immigrated during the Soviet era. He passed away in like the 2000s or 90s. Could be Boris Kogan, but it's probably a different Kogan. 1948 is yeah. I imagine that Boris Kogan was probably around the same age as Geller, so I don't know for sure. I wasn't really, I never met Boris Kogan, but that's the Kogan that I know, except for the other one. The Israeli-French predator. All right. Anyway, we've got Geller, Kogan, and Mule Skinner versus Marta. But we're gonna warm up with Asterbait versus Yorkshire Badger. Now, hopefully we'll have more than 3 games. All right, Asterbait opening with Knight F3, and Black playing D6. This is a move I like to play myself. D6 is kind of against the knight's intention. One of the ways that Black can kind of quickly play E5. So it also allows Black to play the Sicilian in a lot of cases. So I think one of the reasons why people like to play D6, if White chooses to play E4, we can turn it into a Sicilian. What's up, Mr. Coffee? George Carlin. Yeah, I was thinking alligators, like contestants who are committed or who like, I mean, they already want to do it for migrants, but I thought maybe we could expand from migrants to just like, corporally, not corporal punishment. I meant well, anyway, people on death row. I said corporal punishment. People on death row, they could have like a chance to go on like a game show, maybe like upgrade their punishment or whatever. Capital punishment, the opposite of corporal, right? Capital punishment. You can, if you survive like the moat full of alligators on live White House TV, then you can be upgraded to like being incarcerated in the women's golf club with Ghislaine Maxwell. Anyway, that's our political joke for today. We've got knight f3, d6, c4. So Astrobait meets d6 with c4. So we've got an English. This is a position I've played a lot, mostly with white. And then knight to f6. And now typically knight c3 or g3. We can obviously play d4. I think Astrobait needs to be careful with d4 because he's not really experienced playing d4. That's his worst opening. Sticking to the English type of stuff would be safer for you. Boom! Did you hear that? Oh, the volume's up a little. I was trying to play Baldur's Gate yesterday for the first time. And I had my gaming computer on. And, wow, that was loud. Chess with Me, 2500. And anime, that was 2 days ago. Chess with Me, 2500. Alright. I think I have some kind of ear infection. I thought it was a jaw infection. I'm beginning to think it is really an ear infection. Alright. Knight c3, e5. Black's going for like an old Indian / King's Indian. And now, main move here, typically for white, would be either d4 or g3. And I have also played black here. d4 can be met by a lot of different moves. But again, Astrobait, I think you're safer not playing that. This is maybe objectively white's best move, but it's gonna go into a very tough kind of King's Indian or Old Indian where Astrobait doesn't have a lot of experience. G3 is safest because our king side, will be well protected by this King Safi and Kato. And then instead he plays E3, and this is fine. It's a King's Indian attack in reverse. Mr. Coffee, you're familiar with this. So what we see now is a quiet setup for white, where it's like white is black and black is white. And black is playing the King's Indian attack. In this case, the Old Indian attack. I have like fluid in my ear. It's so annoying. Paul Benko against Samuel Reshevsky, 1975. Now there's a classic. 10 years before. I was just thinking, I think this September, it's 2025. So I was thinking, first of all, how crazy I am. And then I was realizing why I'm fucking loony. Because I've been playing competitive chess for 40 years, which makes you crazy and it, gets on your nerves. But ironically, Pal Benko, Reshevsky, 1975, 10 years is not a long time, really, if you think about it. It's scary. And when I started playing chess in 1985, think about it. We're 10 years out of Benko, Reshevsky still being very, very, competent, strong grandmasters. By the time I started, Benko was there at the New Jersey Open when I played in 1985, probably, but Reshevsky, I'm not so sure. I don't think so. Just scary, that's 50 years ago. This fall, this Labor Day, it will be 40 years since I played in my first rated tournament. E3, now bishop e7. This is probably weaker than g6 or knight on bd7. Ideally, black's better off putting the bishop on a long diagonal. And a lot of players will play knight on bd7, securing e5 here. If you play knight on bd7, you can wait to or determine where you're going to put your bishop on the next move. So bishop e7. Now, Acerbate should go for d4. Normally we go for d4. Alternatives are all passive. You played like the least passive alternative to d4 here. No, I see what you did, and it's really not that bad. b4 is not that bad. b4 is not that bad. Believe it or not, it is not that bad. I expected you to play b3, which is also not so bad. Yeah, no, b4 is okay. I mean, normally we would do d4, black will hold the center. Then we play something like, say, bishop e2, castles. But ultimately, Acerbate ultimately, and this is the Benko Reshevsky game you can see from 1975, ultimately b4 is one of the most like common correct plans. You're gaining space on the side where you have more space. b4, a4. If black closes the center, let's see, rook e8, b4 main move. You just played it a little early. But how bad can it be? What's up, Rangawi? I don't think that b4 is a bad move. You're simply transposing to a form of, Polish opening. But black's setup isn't that dangerous. He's playing an old Indian. Do what you want. Okay, now c6. You could also call this a Sicilian in reverse, because it is essentially. You're playing the Sicilian. Bishop e2, good. And now I would expect black to castle, but instead, black doesn't castle. I would expect either castles, maybe even push the pawn, maybe knight on bd7, but instead he plays bishop e6. Now this move, the problem with this move, it's like, well, what does it do? What does it do? I mean, he doesn't need to strengthen his control of d5. He has good control of d5. He just can't play d5 because his e5 isn't protected. Black needs to strengthen control of e5 so that he can play d5 and then have the ideal pawn center. So what does bishop e6 do? It develops a piece for the sake of developing it. But it's not really a great move, actually. First of all, it's prone to being attacked by knight to g5. So I think this is rather superficial. Still, it's a move. It's not great. Now you did what you do all the time, where you're oftentimes playing these routine moves. Rook c1, though, okay, it's not a bad move either. This is one of the more appropriate examples of you playing rook c1 I've seen in this kind of setup. Because there's a strong likelihood that black is going to play for d5. And if black plays for d5, you're going to have compensating play along the c file. So c file makes sense here. Okay, rook c, and now h6, and this move to stop knight g5, and in an appropriate moment. Now, for some reason you don't like the move d4. Maybe you don't like push. After push, here is d5, closes it up. I can understand. So here, what do? You can play a quiet d3. Yeah, that's possible. Then knight on bd7, and black's ready to play for d5. Now we should probably consider what our plan is. Are we just going to sit by while he plays for d5? Welcome, everybody. I'm hosting an analysis stream. Subscribers can submit their games, but you do have to be a subscriber. Mr. Kraken Hunter. Oh no, oh no. Mr. Kraken Hunter, a small donation tonight, bringing us up to 15, 15, 15. That's all fives and ones. Is that? Wow. Ones and fives. 151515 5051. That's pretty neat. So very, very generous, Mr. Kraken Hunter, with a $16.74 donation, evening it out to 15, 15, 15. Guys, we have 72 days to go. But I will be going to the United States for 2 weeks in that period between September 25th and, so, I mean, I might be able to throw in a stream or two from the States, but just for old time's sake. We need to get this going. We got goal of 3,000. We're just over halfway there. I think we can make it. Thank you, Mr. Kraken Hunter. All right. So, I think D3, D4, but Astrobate plays an interesting move now. The old flipperoonie. Bishop D3, with the idea of coming back here. This diagonal is pretty weak. I think this move is justified. Now knight on BD7, and he's guarding his E5 pawn. Now there's a problem. Black is ready to play D5. And when he plays D5, he's going to be threatening to fork you. Fork University. Shooting the storage move out. Nice. Storage unit stream. September, be there. Mr. Coffee might be a live guest. All right. So, we could play, Weedmaster. Should come. Weedmaster will come down. We can play Blitz in the storage unit once I clean it out. Knight on BD7. Castles. Yeah, well, the problem is D5. So Astrobate, I don't think you should sit there like just la 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 while this guy's ready to play to hit you in the center. But the problem is you can't play bishop back because the bishop takes C4. So I'm beginning to wonder if this was really a good idea after all to do what we did here. I also wouldn't be surprised if Astrobate did something insane like knight to h4, which probably loses a piece. I think knight h4 actually loses a piece to the move e4, because he's going to have problems here. So now we have an issue. This isn't great. This is inconsistent. This is no good. If only your pawn could jump over your bishop, you'd be fine. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I had to suggest a move, okay, we want to look at this. We try to get the knights out of the way, for the bishops. I can't begin to tell you guys how much of a problem this knight is in the Sicilian, blocking bishops on b2, right? And also other openings. Queen's Indian. This is kind of a hybrid of Queen's Indian and Sicilian, what we're doing here with white. But knight is in the way, so this better coordinates our pieces, right? But the problem is this is not a particularly, constructive move. So after knight takes c4, bishop takes c4, d5, we're playing right into this. Takes, maybe bishop b1, and now hopefully we have some counterplay here. Maybe we have just enough counterplay. Like, for example, he takes this, we can take on e5. So I think that's probably your best bet. You need to do something. You can't go here. You can't go here because of pawn fork. Notice that even bishop takes f6 doesn't work because of recapture and guarding this fork. So, this looks like one of your only good moves, honestly. If knight e4, black actually should probably just castle. And then, you haven't really achieved anything. Really. Maybe you achieved this, defending your pawn on c4. That's something of a constructive. So after castles, my problem here now is that black can go with d5. So let's examine what happens if d5. Takes, knight b5, threatening knight c7 check, and threatening knight to c5. So it's a double threat. The problem is he has this other thing with like e4. So let's see. Check, king f8, knight takes, a8, and maybe pawn takes bishop. You can actually rescue your guy. So he has to take here, and now you're going to lose a piece. Let's say bishop, let's see, this pawn on a3 is hanging. The b4 pawn, rather, is hanging. So what's the conclusion? You know, I don't really have a conclusion. I mean, it's unclear. Maybe knight d4, pawn takes e3, knight takes e6 check, pawn takes, for example, queen here. Black has two knights for rook. That's the end of the day. It's very messy. All right, so instead, well, black has good moves. Black has castles, completing development, and going forward with d5. Alternatively, black has the move a6, which is a very standard move in this kind of structure. He'll take away the b5 square so that he can play d5 with impunity or immunity to the threat of knight b5. So he has three clearly good moves, but instead he plays this primitive caveman-like move that attacks the pawn on c4. I'm just a caveman. Some scientists thawed me out. Yeah. This is not a great move for black. It's very superficial. It is a one-move threat. It undefends the central pawn on e5. So, but Astrabe, I don't think you made the best move. If we have to choose a way to defend this pawn, what are our options? There's option 1 and option 2. Actually, there's more options. There's option 3 and option 4. Option 5 loses a piece to e4. Maybe. And this also loses a pawn. We don't like this. So, I think you should go here. Knight b6, unprincipled, one move threat. That's what most people do best. Exactly. Exactly. So, why not e2? Looks like a good square, brah. This has a lot of positive upside. You're developing a piece. Your queen is well protected here. It also protects your bishop on d3, which was unprotected. And now c4 is guarded. But instead, you put your queen on a square where it's actually exposed to attack from the bishop on e6. That's really kind of dangerous. You know, luckily, I'm not sure that black has a concrete way to take advantage of it. Like, if only black could play b5, he'd be good to go. But he can't. So queen b3 turns out to be playable. You're also lucky you have this rook to back you up, because on moves like e4 you can take, and unfortunately, you know, here you have a recapture. And when the smoke clears, the material ends up, let's see. One pawn for the exchange. Does this work? e4. By the way, like, if I'm a caveman, then I play queen e2, and you go here. Does the same thing work? It does, doesn't it? Wow, you're winning with bishop takes g7. That's another option. But see the difference between having your queen on e2 and a b3? Try playing bishop g7 here with your queen on b3 and see what happens. Not quite as good. Apparently it's still good, surprisingly, but black has these complicated moves like, I'm a caveman, I don't understand. 4-move combinations. I can't count to 3. That's too complicated for me. You should have put your queen on e2. Alright. This guy's not capable of coming up with that kind of tactic. He plays this, a6, and now you played knight e4, which is consistent. But now we get to the critical situation. So if he takes and you take, he has this pseudo combo. You know, knight takes c4. And this is where things get problematic. You're going to lose the exchange here, or at least a pawn. The guy, you know, he's not capable of finding that. 1700. He might have played it by accident, though. There's a fair chance. By the way, Astrobate 1620, you said you almost got up to 1700. All right, I'm dissing all 1700s. It's not nice. I'm sorry. This particular player, the way he's playing, I knew he wouldn't find this. I was certain. Knight takes c4. Certain players, they avoid any kind of tactics like the plague. You know, he's playing in a very strategic, kind of safe, old Indian way. He's not playing tactics. Play the first move you can think of. Knight e4, no. I mean, at the minimum, black can take and play d5. I mean, I think that's probably not so bad. Takes, and then if pawn takes, you move your bishop away. He has f6. I don't know what to suggest. This pawn is really weak here. Maybe d4, actually. Counterplay. Again, your queen is in an exposed position. It should have been on e2. Arsenal fan, good morning. So I'm making a big deal about it, but it matters. There's so many variations where this queen is. You know, Astrobate, to be fair, your queen is normally oftentimes going to b3 in a Polish type opening. But you're very much, you know, hamstringed here by this position of these guys being forked. So we put the queen on b3 in situations where the bishop's on e2 and you have a pawn like on d3 or something, then it's not as much a problem. But here, yeah, there's all kinds of forks. So a6, knight e4, you got lucky there. Knight on bd7, now back. And now he takes, and now you take. Okay, it's just a position. Black plays f5, which I think is a reasonable move under the circumstances. Clearly he doesn't have to do that. Clearly black can castle. But guess what? You're finally, after 15 moves or whatever, you finally have the capability to potentially play d4. The first time after the opening where you've actually had the opportunity, I would say, to play for an advantage. If you get in d4 here, you're going to bust up this guy's center. You're going to take a space advantage. Yeah. b5 is a really sharp double-edged move. Very double-edged move. This player is never going to play it, but a more enterprising player might try this, and then, you know, white would have to decide if you want to play like safe or if you want to take a chance here. Maybe bishop c6, sacking the exchange or something, like take. Probably not enough. You know, I think if b5, yeah, you probably have to go d3 and just suck it up, and then you're, you know, threatening bishop takes c6. But your bishop is problematic. This is very problematic. Say he defends. Let's just say rook c8. Now, what do you do about the threat of f5? Yeah, we better back off. Knight d2. We have to back off of knight d2. f5, bishop f3. You start retreating. And you're okay. This is the kind of structure you would normally get in a closed kind of Polish type of setup. All right. But anyway, f5, I think a reasonable move. Bishop here. And now this move is not. This is not okay. f5 is one thing. Black should complete their development. Castle. Think about stuff like I'm Bent Larson. I'm playing the Dutch. I'm playing the closed Sicilian with f5, whatever. Queen e8. Migrating over to the king side. But this move, it isn't just bad because of the bishop on b2. The real reason this move is so bad is because it leaves black's pawns ragged and fixed and inflexible. These pawns have fucking arthritis, you know? It makes me realize how old I am looking at these pawns. These pawns make me think about going up and down the steps, you know, age 50. Those pawns are rigid and they have no, you know, no flexibility at all. So now you can just pop them. This is a very strong move. I mean, e4 is a positional blunder. This isn't a good move gaining space. It's a positional blunder. I think after castles, and then d4, e4 would make some sense. But not here, not now. Not when you have the d4 square. So knight d4. By the way, you could see, you know, some players perhaps retreating back to e1. Karpov, Toure, going for d3. But this is so strong now. So that's a problem. Because you're on this and you're on this. What's he going to do? King f7? Knight f8? Under the circumstances, it looks like knight f8. It doesn't look easy to finish him off. But it looks really creepy. Black's position is extremely creepy. You don't even have to take right away. You could probably increase the pressure with a pawn break. Because he can't... Well, I guess he could go back to d7. That's true. Okay. So we probably take and then play to crack his white squares. White has a very serious advantage. Maybe this is the safer. Alright, anyway. So e4, big mistake. Knight d4, and then blunder. And now you're winning after knight takes f5. e4 is dropping. g7 is dropping. d6 is weak. He's not castled. There's no way that black can survive. Bishop f6. Now that's another choice of which nugget you want to take here. 3 nuggets. The magic nugget. You get d6 with check. Ruin his ability to castle. I agree. Check. Here. 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 Check. You never want to just check for the sake of checking, but I think this is a useful move. Since g6 isn't a very good option. He's not like getting away. King e7. And now just snap another pawn. And now you have 4-on-1 central majority. You played the pawn structure like a champion this game. Astrobai's biggest issue is his pawn structure play, and it's slowly improving. Queen takes g7 check, easy win. And now, do we have a mate? I mean, if I'm being honest, f4, f5 looks pretty strong. So I think on your best day, you probably would play f4. Threatening f5 mate he can't move his knight without dropping his queen. There are some other interesting moves, including but not limited to bishop f5 check. But anyways, check, and then checkmate. Nice. Nicely done. Okay, Astrobate, that's our first game in the books. Good job. I've got Geller, Kogan, Muleskinner, and we've got room for some more games. If any of the other viewers would like to submit a game who are subscribers. All right, nice job, Astrobate. Muleskinner has resubscribed using Prime for 78 months. So let's go with our Geller game. All right, this is Mr. Slow. Geller Roy Lopez study. No, I take it back. We're leaving the... No, it's not a Roy Lopez study. This is a Sicilian. This is your brain on drugs. A game of Geller's youth. So I don't know. As I said, Boris Kogan was a Soviet era IM who moved to the U.S. He played a couple U.S. championships in the early 80s. Probably this is an older Kogan. If it was played in 1948, 46. Excuse me, 46. Really very old. Any relation to Arthur Kogan? Kogan is a fairly common name. I've known a few Kogans. There was also Noam Kogan. There was an Australian Kogan I played. Yeah, it's a pretty common name. Okay, e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4. And so this is a young Geller. This is variation. This variation with queen takes d4 is named after a Soviet era player, right? Checkover. I remember Checkover because it seems like Botvinnik had some game in 100 selected games. I'm pretty sure that Botvinnik played Checkover, one of his 100 selected games. I'm just thinking, like, Geller would of course go on to be a leading, expert on the white side of the Sicilian, or both sides of the Sicilian. But you have to say it's unusual to see, and especially 1946, someone play this queen takes d4. When already Soviets were very big on opening theory, obviously, sharing information and whatever. That's check hour. This is check over. So queen takes d4. Yeah, an annoying variation for black. I've always struggled against this. There's nothing wrong with queen takes d4. A few years ago, I had a tournament game where I had to play black against Hungarian IM Bokros Albert, and Albert plays this often. And I was thinking back to all the times I had to play against this stupid variation. It's like very easy for white to play, and kind of logical. You don't have to think too much. Black has several main options. Obviously, knight c6, bishop b5. There's a6 preemptively preventing bishop b5, which is interesting. The slightly more dynamic move. And then there's something that my friend Emil Solanci played, which is knight f6. This move is less common, but there's nothing really wrong with it, actually, when you think about it. He had one game he lost, my friend Emil, where the opponent did, I guess, like bishop e5 check, knight c6 and e5. I think it was e5. But I didn't really get it. My friend ended up losing. What does the computer say about this? Yeah, black's actually better after e5. Wow. So it looks like e5 is actually inferior. White should castle. But I guess luckily it will just transpose, you know. So ultimately, knight f6 maybe doesn't have a lot of independent significance. It will just transpose. Okay. So anyway, black plays knight c6. Reducer. Can I send blitz game? Yeah, people do that. Better than bullet. So there's another idea here, which I just want to touch on. The idea of moving the queen rather than playing bishop e5. And this has always been considered to be the main line. But haven't we seen somewhere, I feel like recently, queen d3, there are almost no games, but queen e3, Carlsen, Spidler, Hare Krishna, a bunch of games. I mean, white can continue with, I guess, knight c3, bishop d2, castle queenside. If g6, there's ideas of bishop h6. In some cases, bishop e2. Several players have even played bishop h6 here. Queen c3. And now there's a very strange move. I haven't looked at this. Queen a5, forcing a trade of queens. In any case, I don't think that queen e3 should be dangerous. Bishop e5 is the most efficient move, clearly. Queen e2, the Norwegian rat variation. Well, by the way, we should mention Magnus's pet line, right? Which is that. How does that go? That's with knight c3. So this is the other line, you know, that knight c3 thing. We would see this. If you play knight c3 and black plays d6, then you go d4, takes, and then knight c6 and queen d2. And I saw a lot of people playing this, including like Catronius when he came here to play in some open. He immediately jumped on the bandwagon. But I mean, honestly, like, to be fair, how often does this move order transpire? Because not that many people play knight c3 on move 2. And even if they do, most players play knight to c6. And it's still the main line. It's rare that people play d6, specific to Najdorf and maybe Dragon players playing d6. Yeah. So that's slightly similar, but it's not the same. Anyway, mainline checkover variation, knight c6, bishop e5, and now bishop d7. You know, here I guess we have to ask the question about, is knight f6 a mistake? e5, queen a5 check. That's a transposition again. So that's one interesting point. A lot of people take stuff for granted. I mean, look at the statistics here. This I have seen. That's a very strange move. I don't know who induced this. It looks like Tivyakov has a bunch of games. Probably a computer-derived move. Queen d7. Yeah, centered game has a lot of similarities, right? a6 feels like a massive loss of time. But I do think that maybe, and this move, although it's Arsenal fan approved, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of it. I have to be skeptical of bishop g4. Arsenal fan approved. The knight f6 though. Maybe this has some value. There's no way to take advantage of it necessarily. So everyone automatically plays bishop d7. Okay, now bishop takes d6. This is a move. Now, yeah, I had a game like that in the Steinitz. That's the other thing it's similar to, Arsenal fan. The Steinitz Roy Lopez. So if you have like this, I had this the other day. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, d6, d4, bishop d7. And then, how does this go? What am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking of the other line. Yeah, so d4 takes, queen takes, yeah. I had this the other day. And so now most players take on c6. But interesting is queen d3. Notice, there's only 4 games where this has been played. But 2 of them include Nepomniachtchi and Karyakin. Coincidence? All right. But anyway. Teaching you guys to think for yourselves. Don't play dogmatic moves. Queen d3 has the advantage of keeping pieces on the board, as opposed to the robotic exchange. So the game stays a little more complicated after queen d3. But we here see the classic checkover variation. Bishop takes c6. Pawn takes is possible. You will see people do pawn takes. And I can't say necessarily that it's automatically bad, but I have noticed that personally I've had a hard time playing with this structure because white often has these sort of pawn breaks that are hard to contain, particularly the c5 one. So this is another variation that might not be so bad for black, especially if you want to win. You're going to keep the game more complicated. e5. If you're black, you're playing against a weaker player who like wants a draw. He wants you to go into some kind of oodles of theory. I mean, yeah, maybe this is a better way to go. Even if the computer says it's like slightly worse. Okay, I got this game. Reduce, you said you sent it. Where is it? Arsenal managed to find a game. All right. Where is the game, Redusu? Are you chat banned too? Welcome to the chat band club. I don't know why I don't get notifications. Not chat banned, but I don't get, you're like notification banned or something. I don't understand. Really, I don't understand why certain messages like I get a notification for and others I don't. Maybe it's your settings that control that. All right, so we're still on Kogan. Kogan is black, whoever Kogan is. Koganovsky. So bishop c7, take, standard line. Now there's two major variations. c4 and knight c3. And I think that knight c3 is the more aggressive. Because if you play knight c3, you can opt to castle queenside. And those are the sharpest lines. I lost to this guy in the World Open, like, Blitz tournament or something once. Gregory Brailovsky. He was like a 2400. And he just like killed me in a Blitz tournament or he just knew the line really well. After knight c3, they're going to try to attack you on the king side. That's the main line. That's what he plays here. But this is more of a positional move, c4. Marazzi style. We're not going to go for a queenside castling. We're just going for a space advantage in the center. So knight c3. Now white can opt to castle either way, but more active to castle opposite sides. Knight f6. Bishop g5. I just want to comment on this move. That it is like white's kind of good bishop. He doesn't have another bishop, but there are cases where we're going to give up both bishops, maybe, and play two knights against two bishops. That could be an important idea. As you can see, white could potentially put his bishop on a different square. Here, this just looks a little slow. b3 is an idea. It might be too slow. So, all right. Anyway, white wants to castle queenside. Most cases. Bishop g5, e6, and now, this is Geller Young. Normally, white castles queenside here. This is main line. Alternatives. The only alternative is really queen d3, and this is an important idea because this move keeps e4 protected, but it gives the knight the ability to come to d4. That's the idea. That's what you can't go back to like d2 because you'll, in some cases, you'll drop this pawn. So d3 is better if you want to retreat the queen. But the main reason for retreating the queen is to play for knight d4, not just to retreat the queen for no reason. But Geller castles kingside, so this shouldn't be dangerous. This is a young master who doesn't know a lot of opening theory, playing a move that's not, it's not dangerous. Black should be fully okay here. So you can see the statistics are very good for black because strong players don't play this line. Fernandez played it against Helios, and Ian Rogers played it, and then a handful of other 2300s played it, but no strong players other than, those two guys. Only two GMs have ever played this other than Geller. So it's harmless. Without the ability to castle queenside, white doesn't really have any advantage. He's just playing safe. So bishop e7, rook a d1. And now in a lot of lines, the black queen will move, and we can play tactically. Yeah, well, Arsenal, like the variation you're suggesting. There's a lot of cases where black will also recapture with the bishop, maybe even sacrificing the d6 pawn, rather than allowing his pawn structure to be damaged with g takes f. Pure romanticism. I feel like maybe we're going to see a little bit of Nesbedinov style here. But rook d1, castles is a good idea. This is fine now. If bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. If you take on d6, I would think that black has... Well, no, and black just simply has the chop everything variation. This is already, like, clearly better for black. So bishop takes f6 is not an idea. It's not good. He plays this. Sorry, castles, rook e1, defending e4. And now black has a real question. What is your setup now for black? What's the best way for black to deploy here? Queen a5, number one move. Everything needs to be considered. Even queen b6 is probably like a viable move. Even trading queens. Because this pressure here, even that's probably not so pleasant. White has nothing. Just saying. But queen c7, someone mentions e5. e5 loses the d5 square. I'm thinking here we're getting into situations where white will be able to take on f6 and play knight d5 with advantage. So for example, queen d3. Now we're actually threatening to play bishop takes f6, knight d5 with that sort of dogmatic advantage. I mean, here, if you want to do this, we're just winning a pawn. So he plays queen c7. This is the second most common move. And then a lot of beginners will play moves like this. This is ironically what the Spanish Grandmaster did against Helgi. But I mean, all this does is like you're trying to play for a draw or something. You're literally like trading your own center off. He's playing for a draw with e5. I'm sorry. This is like intentionally trying to trade everything off. So white doesn't want to do that. He can take on f6. But again, what's up with bishop f6? Bishop f6, bishop f6. Pontus Carlsen managed to lose a game here. Queen d6. Aha. And Pontus Carlsen didn't want to trade queens. So I was thinking about this kind of endgame. This could be sort of torturous. But I'm still... You gotta feel like... I mean, I still think like probably this is a draw, bro. Damn. 0-0. So this is Luis Gallego against Pontus Carlsen in 2005. After queen takes c6, black has the simple trade, bishop takes c3, rook f8 equal. And instead, you know, he goes off on this tangent with queen a5, ends up losing. You know, you got no business playing for a win here. So I guess he just missed this. But the other possibility is taking with the pawn, which Swedish Grandmaster Ernst played. See, this is the thing, though. You know, with these two knights against his two bishops, it's like a rouser. The queens are on the board, and white can play for a win. You know, slowly. Queen back, knight d4, coming up here. Black's going to have to play creatively. King h8, rook g8, rook g7. This will be a very complex game. Very, very complex. So much safer for black to take back with the bishop. But Geller realizes that bishop takes f6 sucks, right? So he doesn't do that. He realizes this. He probably calculated this is nothing. And it's true. So Gallego had nothing. He was lucky. But h3 screams of, I'm a noob. I'm a noob. I'm a young future top player, but I'm just playing safe moves. h3, doing very little. And now rook f8, which looks okay. And then knight h2. Now, if I played this move against, say, someone on sound. By the way, I just want to mention in last Simul, I played a King's Indian attack where there was a comment made about, it was a King's Indian attack. There was a comment made by someone on sound where he made fun of my move knight h2, which had already been played by Grandmaster Viktor Michalewski. I just want to say, like, you made fun of Michalewski's knight h2. Someone on sound. So, but this isn't even a closed position. This is an extreme example. In the position where I played knight h2 against someone on sound, it was a closed position. This is kind of an open position. So it's very strange to move over the knight to h2. It is creative, but I don't think it's right. He wants to come to f1, maybe redeploy to here or here, or just simply knight g4. So what's the problem with knight f3? We'll see some hands in the air. Sorry, knight h2. What's the problem with knight f3, h2? It's not a close position, and you're pulling your knight away from the center. So it's black's job to find the way to exploit this somehow. Is there any way to exploit this somehow? If I try to play d5, for example, then it is going to be closed. I mean, this deserves to be considered, though. Maybe it's not so bad. For example, this is sort of closed now. So d5 doesn't seem right. e5, same thing. We're going to run into those d5 situations again. So central pawn pushes don't look that dangerous. It's not easy for white, or rather for black, to exploit this knight h2. So I like, I want to say check over. I like Kogan's move. b5 not only threatens, to expand with a5, b4, but also gives him queen b7, which I think is useful. And he can try to expand the pressure on e4 with the queen. This looks like a good move. And now we see Tal Nesbedinov, School of Chess, rook d3. Now when I see that move with black, I'm like, all right, man, the gloves are off now. Very subtle. Caveman. I just put my pieces in front of the enemy king. I'm just a caveman. Now you're like, oh my god, that's why you put the knight on h2. To fully cavemanize it. Now one question though, if white goes rook g3, will not black have knight h5? Yoda asked the question, not me. e5. e5. We assume queen d3. Knight e8. Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to trade bishops. So you suggest bishop exchange, but maybe we would consider avoiding it. But let's say takes. Knight. Oh, what are you doing? Knight d2. Did you steal a move or something? Arsenal fan, did you steal a move? Or are you saying like... Okay, I don't know. Anyway, rook d3. If rook g3, knight h5 might be a thing. Black now I think should be very careful. And one of the things that you do need to look for is like b4, because this will always lead to situations where d5 is possible. So my first question is, can black play b4? And if white has nothing better than this, what are black's options? Maybe even this is worth a shot. Because after this, I'm not liking our queen position too much. Some of them sound would find a way, you know, to beat me in the simul here. Maneuvering his queen around, like, not getting trapped. But, my spider senses are tingling with b4. There is bishop f6. Alright. This is the point. He has bishop takes f6. And now this isn't so clear. This is a different ball game now. It's not clear if black would have enough compensation. Oh shit. Yes it is. Well, Stockfish thinks it is, but I'm not sure everyone would agree. Wow. Wow. So b4 is fucking strong. Oh wow. I admit I like the move, but I have to admit, like, I wouldn't have been as convinced about black's advantage here as Stockfish is. Because you got to find bishop e7 going back, you know, and that's a tough one. I don't want to go backward. So, anyway, the moral of the story is you got to play quickly against this rook d3. I mean, I've played enough browsers to know. We need immediate counterplay. a5 looks like it might be a good move, but b4 is way more direct. What else can white do? Maybe knight d1. There is, you know, this is the plan. Obviously, knight e2 doesn't look good. So, white has to play knight d1. What's up, Miles? And then this looks like a bad idea, but c2 is hanging. So I wasn't sure. Probably black is good here. Somehow. But he has to be careful. Yeah, it's knight h5 is equal. Not so simple. This the computer says is 0.1 advantage to white. I was thinking knight h5, and that's what I said earlier. Check this out. Bishop takes e7, queen e7. You just eat a pawn. Bishop's stupid. And now white's out material. This is exactly what I guess white was hoping for. So let's try this. Let's try this differently. Bishop e5 is bad. Bishop e5 is bad. Okay. But I mean, okay. I don't think his move a5 is bad. a5 is still not bad. And then rook f3. This is really shocking. I have to admit, I never look ahead in the moves because I don't want to know. You know, I want to like experience the game without knowing in advance what the next move is. It'll bias my judgment and analysis of the position. I thought white was going to play rook g3, but he doesn't. He plays rook f3. This is caveman, again, you know, caveman stuff. 1948, 46. Young Geller. Being caveman. Now black plays b4 and caveman. But we have this. I mean, b4 is by no means forced. Doesn't look like there's any sort of 94 tactics. You know, the typical 94 tactics. You can take here, but you're not threatening anything. That's the problem. This knight doesn't fork anything. It doesn't attack anything. So, probably not. 94 tactics only work like 5% of the time anyway. But Just because there's no knight e4 tactics doesn't mean that black doesn't have any resources other than the move b4. However, this is hard to deal with, you know. It doesn't really look like black can prevent this sacrifice on f6. He just has to kind of go with it. You could play e5, but what does that do? Well, it would directly cut off the threat against f6, one of the threats against f6. So say he plays e5. Now what does white play? Let's consider e5. A very, very committal move, but still worth considering. Where do I put the queen now? Queen d3 is like the standard square, but you have to consider d2 and e3, you know, as well. This might be a thought. If I put the queen on this diagonal, you know, that might be relevant in some cases. I wouldn't easily be able to judge where to put the queen here. This is the most natural. So instead, okay, black plays b4, white sacks his rook. So what's the point? Well, it's creative. He's being creative. He's going to follow up with knight g4. He's going to follow up with knight g4. There is no immediate threat. This is the trick. It's a very shocking idea. Play rook f6. Black's like, whatever, screw you. I'm going to take here. What are you doing? Rook f7? I don't think so. Rook e6? No. Geller's idea was simply overwhelm the color complex. And I don't know if it works, but it makes sense. He plays knight g4. Now, computer might refute this, but it's a cool idea. I mean, you got to give him credit for a very creative idea. Now, if black takes, I mean, there's going to be some serious issues. But black doesn't have to take. He's up like a pawn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, equal material. Whatever. He just take on b2. I mean, is white actually threatening anything? Is the question. What is white threatening? And how is white threatening it? My inclination here with black is to ignore it. He played h5. I don't understand why black can't play like pawn takes pawn. Honestly. Because this would render white equal material, but with a bad structure. What does white have something better than queen takes b2 here? Is there a fancy knight h6? Problem is, right? Takes. Now what do you do? My fear is this e5. That's when I start hyperventilating. I'm like, oh, fuck. Now you have some rook e3. You play bishop h4. Uh-huh. Okay. The rook protects b1. That's an interesting idea. So takes bishop h4. e5. Can my king walk over here and like escape? queen d3. Maybe, maybe not. Let's say queen d3. Yeah, I would say take, take. Or do I? No, I have to take. And then run away. Queen d3. King e8. Yeah, check, king d7, check, king c8. Something along those terms. I mean, for example, let's see what the computer says about knight h6. It doesn't work. Takes. So bishop h4 is a neat try. But apparently it's not enough. Okay. So anyway, knight h6 is not enough. It's not enough. I would probably go with pawn takes pawn, but it's very tempting to play h5. But this is a little bit naive. Still, stupid engines. We don't have to use the engine. We're focusing on, intuition. This is a human game. I'm saying I can't calculate that far. And if I can't, why not just play pawn takes pawn here? To me, h5 looks... It's a little bit like disrespecting, White's whole concept. You think, well, it's not a big deal. It doesn't really weaken any squares. g6 is still protected. But still, it does weaken black's kingside in general. So h5 is not the safest move. In a sense, it's kind of a lazy move. So I'm not surprised if white has something here. That idea is more complex now, because that one advantage of h5 is that it would provide an extra flight square for our king in a lot of variations. But in this particular case, the fact that there's no pawn on h7 might actually do more damage than benefit. That e5 is going to screw us over every single time. This is still messy, though. I'm not convinced. All right, h5, and now a really surprising move. What can he play? Yeah, god damn it, knight h6 was the best move. Holy shit, bro. Geller missed it. It's the obvious move anyway. He didn't play it. I don't believe it. So I'm saying pawn takes pawn, and you're saying like queen e3. Absolutely. You don't have to play knight h6 check. Of course. No, I just wanted to check out the forcing move, knight h6. You're absolutely, I'm sure you're right. I don't believe white is better here. White is lost. It turns out the best move is queen takes pawn, and white's probably losing. It was an unsound attack, but still, black makes a practical mistake. He plays h5. And now, this is very interesting, right? Knight h6. Geller missed it. That's what I thought was coming, no matter what, So what's the point? Like, obviously you can't play king f8. King h8 is bad. So you probably have to take. You have to take. And then bishop takes looks like it's not good enough because of this. So by process of elimination, unless we're going to do like the arsenal attack, we have rook takes h6, threatening mate on h8. And now black can block with the f pawn or the e pawn. e5, queen e3. It looks slow, doesn't it? It looks like white needs 2 moves to actually do anything. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe bishop f6 is for real? Is white threatening anything on the move here? Yeah, I mean, that's a huge idea, bishop takes e4. That could be a total computer shot in any moment, of course. Cheating with the engine? Damn, it's close. It's close, it's 0.6. f6 is just barely hanging on. f6, bishop h4, king g7. Crazy complications. Bishop f6, rook f6. And then you can't take the rook. Oh my god, bro. Yeah, this is Tal type of stuff we're looking at here. Totally in that style. But surprisingly, he goes with bishop h6. What? What the? That ends in a draw, that other line. Bishop h6. What are we threatening? Rook g6? Rook g6? Among other things? We're threatening rook g6? Or are we threatening rook f7? We have rook, might even have rook f7. I mean, the point is if black did something neutral, you know, we might have this. We might have this. But there's always e5. And then there's the question of what happens if bishop f8, which is good to think about. So I don't really have a fucking answer for that. I'm definitely playing bishop f8 in a blitz game. Show me the money. Well, I mean, the truth is that it was a mistake to play bishop h6. So, bishop f8 wins. Okay. Instead, black played e5. He's lazy, plays e5. It's not as good. This is a huge blunder. Now queen e3. And so now the point is if you play, I guess if you play bishop f8 now we have queen g5. I still don't understand how that works. He should still have bishop f8, no? No, holy shit. Bishop takes g7. It works. Bishop takes g7, bishop takes g7, knight h6 check. Bishop h6, queen h6. I was thinking rook takes. Queen h6. And now you have real stuff. You're going to have to let him queen a second queen. Rook f3, queen, check, king h2. h4 draws. There's also the Arsenal fan, you know, sort of bishop takes e4 type stuff. It's not enough here. So this is how crazy it's going to get, right? If you play bishop f8, it doesn't quite work now. So bishop h6, e5, queen e3, and now h takes g4. Now that's a naive move. That's not respect. So he straight up thought, oh, little kid, get out of here. You know. That's like when I was analyzing with Magnus. When I beat his dad. Get out of here, little kid. Bishop takes g7, king g7, queen h6, check, king g8. And black probably, he probably like thought it's a perpetual. Actually, it doesn't even look like obvious perpetual. Fuck. That's the point. So suddenly there's this threat of rook h5. And all the pieces in the world aren't going to save you. Oh no. The slow motion mate. He plays bishop e8, rook h5, and f6. And I don't see a better defense. Check. Now white plays rook h4. Well, he can't lose any more material. There's no immediate mate. Flushing the king out to e6 is only a perpetual. Check h7, king f8. Check h8, king f7. If you flush him out with a rook, he goes to e6 and then he comes back to d7. So even here, black could be excused for thinking that he's defended. But white has rook h4, now threatening rook takes g4. f5 would weaken black's position too much. So I guess at this point he has to like start thinking about sacrificing his queen. Plays queen c8. We're threatening rook takes g4 check. So this starts to look like black's lost. It's not lost. Oh my god. Holy shit. I cheated and looked. That's the only move that doesn't lose for black. He doesn't have any defense. He just has to take on b2. How the fuck does that save black? I mean, who would think like you're almost getting mated and your only defense is to ignore it. Take on b2, you're not even threatening anything. That's unbelievable. I mean, what's the point of c takes b2? You threaten to like, you prevent him from like lifting his rook because you'll make a new queen. Even so, it's hard to believe. So that's cold. He has to take on b2, and white is not winning here. White can play like any move and it's a draw. King h2. That way b1 won't be with check when I lift my rook or whatever. This is a really annoying move, huh? So maybe I go with rook e3. That's incredible, man. It's incredible. It would be very hard to annotate this game, you know, as a human. What is this message? Miles. Oh my god. You played one of the Muppets. Alright. Muppet down. When they were kids, that's what we used to call them. Where am I? Ruzhin and Aronian, when they were teenagers, they looked like they're adults with big heads. So my friend called them the Muppets. They had like bushy eyebrows and they had like big heads. They looked like adults in little bodies. Seriously. And Akobian and Aronian both. So the Muppets was funny. They were like 16 and we were adults and we called them the Muppets. Alright. Anyway. We're finishing up game 2 here. This incredible H5. Okay, where the hell did my line go? So Rook H4. Yeah, black plays Queen C8. So I guess the idea is to sack the queen here. That would certainly stop mate. Yeah. But apparently it's not enough. So check, King F7, check, King E6, Queen G7 threatening mate. The king walks away. And this is a really cool game. Rook here. Black's up 2 bishops. C takes B2, Queen E7, check, King C6, check, King B6. And then Rook takes Queen. Black queens with check. King H2, useful square. Suddenly, we're facing Queen B7, winning our queen. Black plays Rook D7. And now Queen E8. And Rook H7. And then Queen C6 check. Mate in 1 to follow. Really too complicated to even get to all the variations that are possible in that game. Notice how the bishop was hanging before Rook E3. Yeah, he doesn't take on E7 check. He just goes Rook E3 first. Nothing can defend it. Black could play Bishop F7. But then you have, I guess, just take. It's not better. I mean, let's say, okay. Let's take a look at this. Bishop F7. You played pawn takes pawn. My question is there anything in Bishop F7? Because on Queen takes G4 check, you have Bishop E6. And on Queen F7, you have Rook E8. Now, clearly White has a huge attack here, but is that 100% clear? Rook takes C3. So, Mr. Slow, what do you think? Arsenal is suggesting Queen takes F6. It's not enough. So it's still not winning. Bishop F7 is one of 2 moves that draw. In fact, he could have played King C7 because there's Bishop C6. So this is actually the losing move now. It's ironic. C takes B2 was the losing move. He played it at the wrong time. Yeah, it looks like this line holds. It's very complicated, but Bishop F7, queen f7, rook e8, rook c3, and it's unclear. It's unclear. White has a bunch of pawns for the piece. Black's king is stuck in the center. Okay. Yeah, so c takes b2, ironic. That was the losing move after everything. Okay, I got Mule Skinner, Arsenal fan, Redusa, and playing against the Muppet. All right. So, this is Mule Skinner. He said he reached 1900 FIDE. He's my age, and he's an adult improver. And you'd think that people get to my age and the rating starts going down. But Mule Skinner has reached his peak. He's now in Arsenal fan territory at 1900 FIDE. But nice job, because the thing about Mule Skinner is that he keeps he's showing us games. He's playing these little kids all the time. He's like, his rating is kind of low because he's not like farming his rating in optimal conditions. You know, play other adults in like a club league, you probably are a little better off. But you play in opens against little kids, and you still manage to gain points, then yeah, he's an excellent player. I agree, Arsenal fan. I think that he's been 1900 strength all along. It's just that his rating is like catching up with him. That's all. Okay, e4, c5. You know, maybe he didn't have a rating when he lived in Denmark, and he moved to Spain and played a bunch of these tournaments, and he's playing little kids who are 1500, but they're, you know, dangerous and better than the ratings. But here he's playing his favorite system, the Grand Prix attack. So, knight c3, g6, f4, bishop g7, knight f3, and now black played a move I've certainly never seen. Maybe the Grand Prix attack is back in fashion. Well, I think that Mule Skinner was prepared to play something other than the traditional move. After this, I don't know, somebody was talking about a4. Maybe Mule Skinner mentioned it. I think like Perelstein tried to promote a4. I'm not a huge believer, but whatever. Anything's playable, you know. But queen c7. This is a strange move. Its only apparent idea is to attack the f4 pawn. His opponent is rated 1673, so, you know. The other thing is, like, knight d5 is like begging to be played. I mean, you're gonna like hit c7 and defend f4 at the same time. Worst case scenario, black goes queen d8 and you go back, and it's like you could try again. And if you want to play queen c7, let me know. Repeat, draw. Okay, draw. But yeah, queen c7, really strange move. So yeah, I would be tempted to play knight d5, but at the same time, yeah, exactly. What are you gonna do after queen d8? Mule Skinner must have thought of this and been like, well, yeah, it's not clear if I'm benefiting from knight d5 or not, because it's going to be driven away with tempo by e6. Yeah. So he doesn't react with knight d5, but you have to keep in mind that the queen could grab the pawn. You'd be safe playing, you know, you're totally safe playing the Larsonian, like d3 or Nimzovich. I was just saying to Astrobate today, I never studied like all of Nimzovich's games, but I realize now that he actually did play this type of setup with white on a few occasions. He also experimented with pretty much every opening with white, you know, birds opening, b3. But Larson later played this type of setup a lot. You know, d3, closed Sicilians with like bishop e2. So, I mean, you could definitely play d3. You could definitely play g3, just transposing to a normal closed Sicilian, when the queen on c7 is sketchy at best. But he goes bishop c4, so this is kind of gutsy. You're really you're taking a chance on him grabbing this pawn, but it looks crazy. Is there a way I can play good players in classical online? The 45-45 league on Lichess would be your best bet. There is an organized 45-45 league. So queen takes f4. You could just castle, and it's like a king's gambit, you know. And we got very strong play here. So all right. I don't really get black's play, you know, with queen c7, but whatever. Now he goes e6, or she, Marta. It's a female. e6. Now there's this huge hole here. Hello? So I mean, if I'm black here, I'm not playing e6. You know, I'm telling you now. I would sooner play knight here, you know, let the knight come into d5 and then drop it back wherever. Because now you have two problems. The d6 and the c7 square. So you got to imagine that knight b5 out of the gate looks very strong. This has to be strong. Already black is in big trouble. But Muleskinner's methodology of playing e5 first might be fine. Because with this move, you have now two ways to go about getting to d6. Here or here. So I don't know. After e5, if black plays a6, we go to e4. And that's what happened in the game. But I would ask the question here about d5. Because ultimately, this might be a better try. Black can allow knight b5, move his queen somewhere, her queen somewhere, where it protects the bishop, I guess. Okay, this is not pleasant, but why I know I sound like Marge Simpson's sisters, okay? I was wondering what do I was thinking, like, what do I remind myself of, you know? And what's the name of Marge's sisters? That's what I sound like with my new voice. Knight b5, queen c6, knight d6 check, king f8. And it's not pretty, but, you know, our king is in the hospital in honor of Yasser. But that might be better than what happened. So he plays a6, but now we get this anyway. That's it. That's black's only other real option, I think. And now, okay, black tries this. That was their plan. All right. It's a reasonable try. Bishop f8. Breaking 1900. Yeah, you got to go with what you know. Now Muleskinner with a huge advantage, strategically, like, winning position, I would say. But hard to break through. a4 is very tempting, restricting the queenside play. That's what I would play, like, in a blitz game. But to be honest, I mean, black can play b6. Slowly creep out with bishop b7. Is it that easy? Yeah. So bishop f8 goes off this diagonal. And this is a great move, b3. I like it. What about d4? Well, I mean, you know. So, I like this better. Yeah, I agree. Bishop e2, check there. It's very nice. It's a way of trying to use this diagonal. b5, bishop e2, bishop b7, d3. By the way, maybe we should have thrown in my move. If we throw in my move first, right? a4, b6, now b3, then something like bishop b7, now queen e2. I think this is pretty damn good. It feels like black has less counterplay. We're still going to do the same thing with bishop e2. But the way we played it, you know, b5, bishop e2, we got a little bit more tangled up. Our queen can't get in the game here. And of course, this is good enough. But I wouldn't say white is necessarily like winning. And now he trades for the knight. And that is what we call the frying pan in the fire. You know, you're trading one disadvantage for a different one. But who can blame him? I think it's hard to argue that the knight on e4 wasn't worth taking. Now we have different problems, right? Now there's some light square problems over here. So a4. Plus the d file. It looks like a... what's it called? Nimzovich variation. Knight c6, this structure, right, this is pressure here, plus a4. a4 is going to be deadly. Castle, and now black doesn't know what to do. He's afraid, or she's afraid, to play this, which could potentially open up this diagonal. Guys, thank you. HF Turbo has followed. People22 had followed. Please donate and support our next attempt at the World Senior Championship in Gallipoli, in Italy. You can donate a sub. Tuna fish, roast beef. D6. Black is worried about that diagonal. So it's hard to get any counterplay, but you can't castle queenside. You're going to get ripped apart by a4. You know, in the Nimzovich variation of the Sicilian, you would do this. If you have a bishop on b7, okay, no problem. We can try it. But here, black can't castle queenside. So they play h5, and now a4 anyway. And I guess if I was black here, I'd probably roll the dice with rook b8, to be honest. Looks to me like our best chance is to try to just hold, you know, hold b5. Because this move, it keeps the a-file closed, but this light squares, that looks really bad. White has maneuvers like a5, knight d2, knight c4. So first white plays bishop e3. And now black does the unthinkable. Yeah. Maybe king d8 should be considered. I don't know what to do, man. This is terrible. I think this is the last chance, really. Like rook b8. Try to stay alive. That's the only chance for black. After this, too many weaknesses. But this move is suicide. I think that d6 is really suicide. Okay. And at this point, black would love to say, like, exchange queens or something. You know, maybe we'd have a chance to survive. White doesn't want to trade queens. White wants the queens on the board. Black king is trapped in the center. White has a bishop pair. Weak pawn on a6. Light square domination. But just when you figure Mule Skinner would probably play pawn takes pawn, and on queen d6, I would say you just like go queen e1, for example. This looks absolutely fine. Threatening rook d1. Black could play knight d4, but whatever. We're just clearly better. Just when you think it's safe to get out of the tub. Is anybody here afraid a shark was going to get them when you were a little kid in the bathtub? Raise your hand. I watched Jaws in like 1975, you know, and I was a little traumatized. Just when you think it's safe to get out of the water, is Shark Week at? Shark Week over? Trump started like raving about sharks the other day. The nude lady. That was real. It explains a lot, actually. F5. Just when we thought it was safe to get out of the water, you played F5. So it's a completely classic. He just lets the e5 go and then goes just completely for this white square break here. Very cool. It looks really strong. Did black have f5? I mean, I would never play d6 in a million years. I would be more likely to play f5. Yeah, you know, if f5, I think we don't take en passant, we could take this way. And then g takes f, knight g5, h5 is going to go. So we're probably winning there. So the answer is probably no. Well, if you did it, no, you could do it, but you'd have to take back that way. And d5 is pretty ugly. Well, in any case, black has a bad position. But I mean, honestly, I think that d6 just like lose. It's just insane. You know, it's like, it's insane. Black's position is already like lost, but you got to make some sensible move here. I mean, come on. Knight h6. You play knight h6. What else are you going to do? White probably goes h3. Take away your squares. Maybe black could play like bishop e7 and try to walk his king over to g7. Like a Gurgenidze or something. Try to hang on. You know, the truth is Arsenal probably f6 at some point. But even then f5 would be dangerous. So there's no good can come of black moving his f pawn. But d6 is worse. f5, very strong. E takes f. E takes f, okay. Takes. Now he grabs the pawn. White has massive play. You know, you can see this white square bishop from hell. The d5 square. This. White is almost fully developed. All he has to do is get his rook to the e file. So fg6. And now knight takes g6, not allowing the f file to open up. Okay, d5 is bad. E file. And now knight g5. Oh, goodness. How about that bishop c4? Queen e7. Queen d2. You know, maybe queen d3 deserves to be considered. The light square theme. Because at the end of the day, I don't think this knight coming back to e5 is going to really matter too much. And really we want white squares. So I think this might even be better than queen d2. Queen d2, and then the old f6. Another reason why it would be better You know, you would also have better control of e4. So I think this is better. Okay, c4, you have to consider. But then there's queen d4, there's take with the pawn. Yeah. I definitely like this better. And I'm not afraid of knight e5. I don't care. I can do knight e5. But maybe Emil Skinner has a point. It is a tempo. Queen d2. Now f6. And then a really neat move now. Because you could go here. You could go here and just simply eat the exchange with like bishop f3. Certainly not a bad option. What could possibly go wrong with black's light squares? Rook a e1. Huh. Okay, so the idea is that if pawn takes g5, bishop takes g5, and then bishop takes h5. That well, bishop b5 check. Yeah, bishop b5 check is even worse. So here, for example, bishop b5 check. Forget it. We're done. So black can't do it. Plays king d8, and then bishop c4. Brutal. I think white must be using like some kind of drugs, like caffeine, maybe Red Bull. Piece sack. Queen d5, queen e3. Ah. Sacrificing pieces with check. Come on. Rook d8 is not an option. I mean, I imagine it's winning. Yeah. It is enough. Not surprised. But there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, Mr. Coffee. Knight h6, bishop takes c5. The number one thing is to don't allow them to trade queens with a king that's not exposed. The one thing that white could do wrong. Any kind of queen exchange. Any kind of endgame. Do not let him live to the endgame. Check, king c8, and wins the queen. Winning the queen is better than allowing a queen exchange. And I like here, he doesn't panic. Now queen d5 with a very brutal move. Rook b8, queen c6, mate. Nice. All right, that was easy. Arsenal fan versus Rats. Next game, we got Arsenal fan. What is this message? Oh, Asterbait sending me messages. No hate mail, Asterbait. Guys, please donate, support the stream. Hype train. It's been a quiet week. I know it's summer. Mr. Slow can't support me by himself. We're up to 15, 15, 15. We're going to need to see some donations, some hype trains, some gift subs, get some other viewers in here. Arsenal fan is up now. Arsenal fan playing d4, no less. This is a 3-0. Okay, I think we got a couple blitz games. d4, d6. You can't bluff you because you're an e4 player. But anyway, you weren't in the mood to play e4. You played c4. Black plays g6. And now e4. So, full center variation. Now it's a queen pawn game. And as I tell Asterbait, for those of you that are e4 players who are trying to transition to playing d4, it's very important that white understand that this is really black's pivotal, like, point that he's trying to attack in most cases. In the King's Indian, Modern Defense, Pierce, whatever. To gain counterplay. You're weakest on the dark square d4. So that's where black is going to try to aim, in most cases. Dark square strategy. The King's Indian is a dark square. A dark square defense. So this is a modern. I played both sides a million games. And then here, I've had quite a few games. Normally, Alexander Ivanov, we had multiple games. I had a game with Igor Ivanov as well once. But move order here is interesting. You're not obligated to play knight c3. Knight c3 would be the main move. But I had a game with someone recently, Mr. Slow, where we talked about the fact that Dima Werner had played the Samish with like knight e2. You know, this move is kind of interesting because White can, like Demo did, they were doing some kind of knight, and not just them. I mean, they got it from strong players, but he was an example who I saw. They sometimes move like f3, knight on 2 to c3. So there's various stuff you can do with White here. I don't recommend the 4 pawns attack. I mean, f3 isn't great in this position. It's a little early. It's unnecessary. If f4, I would think that Black would get really good counterplay. Possibly even like playing pawn sacrifices and stuff. So knight f3 allows bishop g4. That's the reason why a lot of people prefer not to play knight f3. I would imagine bishop e3 is fine. I don't know why White's score is so bad here. Seems kind of dumb. Knight f6, f3. It would just transpose to a normal Samish. So those are your options. Arsenal played bishop e2. An uncommon move. And I will say that the downside of this move is that it doesn't help us with d4. Specifically. Like this move supports d4. This move supports d4. This move supports d4. This move doesn't support d4, but it leaves most of our options there. This move I think looks weak because it doesn't. It's just inflexible, too early. But okay, so Black should focus on d4. So knight c6, for example. Yeah, Arsenal. I mean, knight d2. That's a move. Now, either c5 or knight c6, because your move is slightly inaccurate. It's not a bad move, but I think that Black should equalize after bishop e2. You're not going to be able to play knight e2. So knight c6 is best. Black plays instead knight d7. So this is lame. He fails to take advantage of bishop e2, transposing back into a normal kind of knight d7 modern. He has to go for your d4. So you have a choice. Probably we're going to see knight f3, bishop g4 now. You could also try bishop e3, but now e5, d5, knight d4. I think Black has a pretty good position. So I'd rather not allow that. You know, the other experimental thing you do is like push, but again, I think knight d4. Leaves Black with a pretty good move position. Your best move seems to be knight f3, you know, and then if they have to go bishop g4, fine. They could try this too, though. This is probably fairly safe for Black. I would probably push. And, yeah, I mean, it's possible this transposes to some kind of known line in the modern after like 97. There's a few games here. White should be a little bit better. And I think c5 is also okay, but that's like a Benoni. You know, I just don't know. Maybe black could try to do some kind of funky move order, like a Benko or something. How's b5, for example? Valer Kruti lost his Vigentsev. He used to live on my street. One of the IMs used to live on my street. So he broke up with his girlfriend. Or she kicked him out. C takes b5, a6. I mean, Vigentsev is arguing that, like, bishop e2, maybe it's not the greatest move in the Benko. Yeah, you can play b6. But white should still be fine. He didn't lose because of the opening. But I mean, I guess on c5, you could also play knight f3. You'd be hoping to transpose to Marazzi. But probably d5 is the best move. Anyways, this is a normal move, but now you could transpose back into what I would call a very standard classical type position. So, you know, here black's normally playing e5. And sometimes you'll get knight f6. But really surprising is this. And so, okay. Homie wants to play the hippo. We didn't know it was going to be hippo. Now we know it's a hippo. Okay. Fine. Play the hippo. If it's like a blitz game, I like to troll the hippo guys with stuff like a4. I'll do this just to fuck with them. Because if they don't react quickly enough, I'll like sneak in like a5 on them or something like that to kind of disrupt their whole hippo thing. But I don't think it's really a very good move. You should just play normally here. Mate c3, knight e7. Half hippo or whole hippo. It's like when you would go to Boston Chicken, you could order whole chicken or half chicken. And I was always like torn because the half chicken sometimes left me kind of hungry. But the whole chicken was too much, you know, so it was hard. I wanted like 3/4 chicken. But they never sold 3/4 chicken because nobody wanted, like, very few people would eat like 1/4 chicken. So they wouldn't want to cut up like a whole chicken into 3/4. If you cut up the chicken in quarters, you might not be able to sell those quarter chickens. But this is from 40 years of playing chess. You know, it does weird things to you. Anyway, so what's the best option here? Yeah, I've always been one to do... I like h4 doesn't do anything. Bishop e3 is an option. You know, rook b1 is a move. Castles is fine. And probably the most natural. You see a few people playing h4, but I don't think that's really... It's not bad, but it's not really a plan, you know. Bishop e3, I think, is a good move. It supports d4. You might be able to bring this knight back to d2. Some variations. Maybe you don't commit to kingside castling so early. If you play h4, black has to play h6, by the way. Like, this is the only move. Anything else in there, like, lost. A lot of people are, like, noobs, and they'll go here. And this is terrible for black after h5. It's just strategically, like, lost. But h4 is more or less, it's like a cheapo. You know, like, after that, okay, and then what? You know, what's your follow-up? Well, you don't really have one. So I prefer not to play h4. Oh, by the way, there was an Onishuk game there. I always talk about how I beat Onishuk in the hippo. But hold on a second. 1992. Oh. Yeah, that was 10 years earlier. All right. This isn't a real hippo, though. No queenside part of the hippo. The hippo has no rear in this position. And how do you know where the rear is and where the head is of the hippo? It's a pygmy hippo. Bishop g5. New term. Bishop g5. I think it's a bad move because you're just provoking him to make a useful move here. Not terrible bad, but I don't see the point. You might as well just go bishop e3. You can see like most people are just playing h6 anyway. So you don't need to provoke him to do that. It's a blitz game. Okay, let's not overthink it. But like obviously bishop h4, g5 here is possible. I'm not sure we want to commit our bishop to h4. So you went back to e3. And now a6. Unnecessary. So they should play b6. And this f5 is not such a stupid idea either. b6, a6, whatever. Okay. Now if you play a4, black can still play b6 and just allow a5 and then just sit there. But I wouldn't play a4. I'm not sure about queen d2. I think that you can play h4. You can castle. You play a4. There's a lot of things to do. Queen d2 looks reasonable. Now we're really in a full hippo. So now h4. Well, black's going to pile up on your e4 pawn. Maybe knight f6, bishop e7. You can deal with it. Only thing is, when black plays knight f6, you'll have a double threat in a lot of cases. So you're the only player here to play h4, but I think we'll see some games. There's one. This looks familiar. Like I've already been here. Seen that game. Spinal Tap chess, what's up? Oh, there's a new Spinal Tap coming out. So new Spinal Tap movie. Oh my god. With the end continues, right? h4, bishop b7. It's a good thing that we lived that long. International Master Spinal Tap chess. Good to see you. h4, bishop b7. You're playing a lot of variants and stuff. All right, we're still going. I feel like I've seen this before. This exact game, Kozubov Malikov, because knight f6 will go into g4. If he plays knight f6 right away, what do? You said your bishop's jammed in there because your queen's behind it. So after this, black's threatening knight g4. It's pretty annoying. I've seen some good players lose to the hippo. Because it's hard to come up with a plan for white. Check this out. 22700s, basically. What about knight g4 right away? White can still go bishop f4. Looks like he can manage. So what happened in that game? Bishop b7, he had to move the queen again. Okay, it's reasonable though, right? This actually looks kind of reasonable. Be flexible, be willing to move the queen again. And it's clearly not why white necessarily lost the game. But I will say that h4 is not the safest way, to play. I think, seriously, another option here would be to go d5 and threaten to play knight to d4. And let him draw the battle lines. If he wants to go here, we lock it up. Okay, fine. Maybe even g4. But I do think that your queen is gonna be having to move, like in almost all cases. So I'm not sure the setup with the queen on d2 is that good. I normally wouldn't do this. We can hopefully fix your position. h4 is kind of committal. Bishop e7, and now h5. You know what? Maybe this isn't a bad idea. Ultimately. Maybe this is more consistent than what, Kozubov did. Because black has to play g5. You could try to sit there. I don't think he can let you take. You're triple attacking h6. He kind of has to play g5, which is standard. And now you can do... What I was going to say was you could probably try to do something like knight move. Knight h2. What do you think? Does this work? Knight h2. I mean, obviously f5. You know, you're shitting your pants here if it's like Nigel Short playing black, but I think we can manage probably. What's the evaluation? Probably you have some serious optimism problems, but that can always be useful. You don't want to shit. The old pants, dude. Or whizzing the electric fence. Do you like electrocution or shark? Spinal Tap. Would you rather go by shark or electrocution? And if you would rather be killed by an alligator or a shark. So I think sharks are cleaner. I'd rather be eaten by a shark. They're just cleaner animals, you know. What if the alligator eats me and I get like salmonella? And I don't like, what if it bites me, I get away, but I get like salmonella poisoning or something, end up dying slowly. The shark, at least, you know, bites you, salt water, you know, it's all good. Castles, dude. What is this talking about sacrificing on g5? What are we doing with the g5? No sacrificing on g5. I say we get our knight and move it somewhere. So knight h2. Obviously, if here, we're fine. No problems there. So f5 is the scary move. What's the evaluation, the old evaluation? Wow, 0. It's 0.0. No, I think f5 is legit. You haven't played this perfectly, but I definitely don't trust castling now. It feels like you delayed castling, and now you're suddenly castling into that crazy side where you've played h4, h5. I wouldn't really blink if you castle queenside here, but that's also going to be very dangerous. You know, any moment like b5 could happen. This is not a safe position for either side, clearly. Whatever. You castle kingside. That looks kind of strange to me. Now knight f6. It's a blitz game. Let's not overthink it, right? So these are both threats. You played d5. So you're willing to sack your h-pawn. And you have the d4 square for your knight. And if you get that in, I think the whole evaluation tilts to white, right? So what does Alexander Ivanov play with black in this position? You know what I mean? Like one of these people who's willing to play a hippo, good player. Can I just go here? Nigel, another model hippo player. E5. But that knight's on f6. Wait, don't I have to do something with that? Like knight to g4. Let's do this. Is this more consistent? Are you telling me you're going to sack on g5 again? Don't start with that. Come on. You don't start with the bishop g5 crap, because they'll just take it and then like take on c3. They'll be down a piece or something. You might have something, but it's not that. Maybe takes, and now sack the knight on. Now that's interesting. That looks kind of interesting. Knight takes e3, knight takes e6. I'm liking this. Still. It looks alright. Alright, so that's not good enough. You have a tactic there for real. So he takes on h5 though. Wow. Yeah, taking on h5 strikes me as kind of materialistic. But black needs an adequate move here. What adequate move does black have? If it's not knight g4, if black doesn't have knight g4, and black doesn't have knight takes h5, then what does black have? Squadouche. Yeah, e5. Yeah, I mean after e5 though, we're into like your position makes sense mode now. I think you just have a space advantage, and it's not a very good hippo for black. Ultimately, you squish him. He'll try to play a5 or something. I don't know. Okay. Let's say knight h2, a5, knight g4. Maybe it doesn't have knight. Maybe you don't have knight g4. Whatever. You have a space advantage all over the board. You're better. It's hard to break through. Okay. But in the game, play knight takes h5. So chop, chop. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You have knight e6. So takes. Is that important? Yes. Takes back, and then boom. And now you're threatening bishop takes h5 with check. Oh, no. So this is where black is in critical condition. Oof. That's real bad. Suddenly white's position makes perfect sense. And looks like it's a classical King's Indian or something. Crazy. And you're just winning instantly. Ouch. Yeah, so that was really bad. So what do you think his best move is? Wow, castles. Castles of all things. I guarantee Arsenal fan is like sacrificing something on g5 here. And he's probably justified. This looks like... No, I mean, honestly, this is probably like... sound. Would probably be a sound piece sacrifice at that point. Yeah, I don't know if I would castle. The computer's other suggestions, like queen d7. Yeah, exactly. Maybe something like queen d7. Because at least he defends e6. In that case. Yeah, I think I gotta go with queen d7. Alright, but anyway, knight h5, boom. He's like lost. Maybe you could try castling or something. I mean, it's all bad. This is really bad. So this is last chance now. Last chance for gas. Does black have bishop takes d4? He tries it. Okay. The only try. Bishop takes d4. And you're gonna win. You're gonna win a clear pawn. And you have bishop h5 stuff. Ugh. So you play bishop h5 check. Why do I want to play bishop takes here first? Does it even matter? I want to do this first for some reason. I don't know why. Check. Probably doesn't matter. King f8. Bishop e5. Now black has knight c6. Bishop g7 check. That's not clear. Of course you have bishop takes d6 check. Ouch. That would be really mean. Oh, he did that, and that's not what happened, though. So obviously, he's lost, but... Yeah, actually, no. Obviously, he's lost. That we can just end it there. There's no defense for black here. It's over. Nice. All right. Schumacher stop. I personally like this better. I don't know why. It's probably not as good. You know, he has king g8 here. Actually, no, he doesn't. It does look good. So either way is good. Bishop g7 check here. Yeah, maybe yours is more forcing at the end of the day. I have to admit, I didn't see this. Check and mate. Nice one. All right, good game. He's got another blitz game from Reduce. Miles, you're up last. You're batting. It's like 7-man baseball. You're batting 7th. Actually 6th. 6-man baseball. You're batting 6th. All right. Redusa is up. What time is it? Oh, we got time. All right. So Redusa is black. Guys, this is game number 5. My bad. Yeah. That's why you're batting 6th. Tat Forever. Tati Forever. HF Turbo have followed. And thanks to our old friend Spinal Tap for dropping by. So this is just a blitz game. Last one was a blitz game as well. That was game 4. This is game 5. And the last one is Miles. So we got F3. Now this is important. Like, you got to play what you want here. If you want to play a King's Indian, you play the King's Indian. If you want to play a Grunfeld type position, you go with D5. But I think it's most important for the Grunfeld players. King's Indian player doesn't care. You know, you're playing F3. The King's Indian player doesn't give a shit. There was something I thought about recently. Did I have a game where it went like this? I mean, black could play a very early, like, C5. Black also had Benko options. You know, if you play the Benko, for example, you can definitely play B5 type stuff. So all your King's Indian family openings are possible, but you need to think about the move order. I mean, we can call this like a Grunfeld-like thing, but it's really not a Grunfeld. You know, at the end of the day, Grunfeld is quite, you know, unusual type. This is like an unusual type position for a true Grunfeld. But anyway, whatever. Okay, so they have to take or play knight c3. Is knight c3 a decent move? How bad is it? I guess this would just be sort of stupid for white. Just play bishop g7, and then they have a stupid Grunfeld. Even c5, okay. So it's basically an inaccurate move order. White has to take on d5. Now, I don't know if it's possible to do any kind of crazy gambits here. I've never really seriously looked at this. I played the Grunfeld very little with black, and when I did briefly play it, this line wasn't trendy. And I probably looked at some, this is 25 years ago. I looked at some stuff where this line was first being played. Around 1999, Bogdan Lalich wrote a book on the Grunfeld. I remember that. And I remember seeing Jonathan Rowson have a game in Isle of Man. So this started to be played, you know, fairly commonly like 25 years ago, like the late 90s. But there's been a lot of developments in the theory of it since. So first thing I'm just going to say is I don't know if you can do anything crazy like this, but it has been played. Just have a quick look. If c6 takes, knight takes in e3. And now this has been played by Artem Timofeyev and Tom Zak, Katerina Leno, a few people. You could kind of see like Rudolf Spielman being down with this for black, because this is pretty kind of lame. But it almost makes you wonder, like, does black have to play e5 right away? If you don't, then white will be able to play d5. So you're supposed to play e5 right away. Like an endgame type scenario would be okay for black. Check, knight c3, and this. It's an interesting option. You know, maybe this isn't enough compensation, but it's, I think, playable. It doesn't look that bad. Anyway, okay, main line, knight takes d5, e4, knight b6, and then Nefyadov, what's up? To play a match one day. Commenting. Wow. I should comment on you guys playing a match. We should have, like, gambling. Side bets. I need a way of making money. You know, you guys, nobody's donating to support the stream, but I could host, like, gambling matches where I was commentating. So I'm just thinking, okay. Well, I mean, bishop e3 is a move. Why is knight c3 necessarily better than bishop e3? There's 1,100 games with knight c3 and only 80 something with bishop e3. But can somebody explain to me, why is bishop e3 possibly not as good as knight c3? Because here we are again. It's a king pawn. Oh, sorry. It's a queen pawn game. King's Indian style queen pawn game. It's always about d4. The Grunfeld. It's always about dark squares, getting control of d4. We're fighting for d4. How could bishop e3 be wrong? I can't imagine it can be a mistake. You know, it has to be just a move order transposition. It's just a move order transposition. There's nothing wrong with bishop e3 if they want to go there right away. No way to take advantage of that. What's black going to do? I mean, what's black going to do? Play e5? Forget it. It doesn't matter. Bishop g7, bishop e3. Okay, now. Hard to get in c5, like in the Grunfeld. So the problem, why I called it like not really a Grunfeld, is because like c5 is almost inevitable in all the normal Grunfeld lines. But it's hard for black to play c5 in these lines. So oftentimes he has to revert to trying to do e5, which is far different from c5. We're no longer talking about trading a flank pawn for the central pawn. We're talking about trading a central pawn for a central pawn. And then leaving black kingside, you know, less well protected. So in these type of lines, queen d2, bishop h6, h4, e5, you see Caruana. Actually, who's played this the most? Caruana played one game with white. Carlsen, one game. Aronian, a couple. It's really like everybody played it a few times. Anand a couple times. But there doesn't seem to be any one specific, like, favorite. Sort of everyone has experimented with this line with white. Okay, yeah, Nefyadov, get the gloves on. Oh, spectating the English Chess Championship. Michael Adams. I saw some horrible Michael Adams massacre of somebody. Nefyadov. It was like a beginner's tactic. Nefyadov, it was horrible, you know. Michael Adams versus somebody just ripped him a new one. When are these people going to learn to be careful against Michael Adams? Yeah, against Shreyas Royale, yeah. Royale with cheese. What does it take for people to realize that Michael Adams is a brutally strong player and you got to be fucking careful? The guy just got absolutely crushed, dude. Yeah, I saw the diagram. It was like a puzzle. It was really brutal. How do you get a position that bad? Okay, castles, queen d2, and now e5. So this seems like main line. But there is knight c6. There's also the Mama Jovian f5 type of idea. It's out of this is like looks crazy, but it's basically like a Marshall defense. So f5, it has some Chigorin like aspects to it. Pillsbury. Yeah, it's very Pillsbury like. Okay, f5, e5 main line, d5, c6. This is traditional. So now it turns out white's main move is h4. And this is a blitz game, and maybe white doesn't know that. So he castled. That's also a move. Castle seems very logical. Rook d1, another option. Castles. My rule of castling in the queen pawn games is like don't castle queenside if the bishop on g7 is open. The problem is it's not open right here, but it can be. After c takes d, e takes d. One moment, e4, and boom, this is open. The position that's very risky for white, it looks like. But of course, bishop h6 would trade that dangerous bishop off. So black to play. It looks like knight a6 is the main move. Modern knight development, where you leave the bishop open. No way. I played Jack Road before? No. No, I didn't. I didn't play him. I know who he is, though, because he played in the same Hastings. No, I just know of him. I didn't play him. Okay. So knight a6. Is better. Not to get in the way of your bishop. Here. See, now it's not clear what black's next move is, because your bishop's blocked in. What are you going to do? If you play knight a6, you can simply play like bishop d7, continue with rook c8. The knight just like gets out of the way. I also want to mention the Hebden-like maneuver here, which is knight a6, knight c7, knight e8. Speaking of English players, Adams is a senior, remember, like me. Knight a6, knight c7, knight e8, knight d6. What about Matthew Sadler? Is there any Matthew Sadler? So here I don't see where we're going after knight d7. Don't like knight d7. h4, no. Oh no. It's Oli Varga. 1994. That's weird. Varga plays the Samish. He beat me with a Samish back in like 1998. I wonder if this could have been transposed from a Samish somehow. Samish King's Indian. Very possible. Yeah, g4 is slow. I mean, the obvious plan is h4, h5, trade and try to checkmate black with bishop h6. So this is a little surprising. And I think that Varga game could easily have been a transposition. So now, this other guy played knight f6, but he's going to go h4, h5 anyway. Well, the other guy didn't play knight f6. You played knight f6. The other guy played f5. Well, I don't like black's position. He's going to get blown away. Um, so at least with this move, you shore up the king side a bit. You could try to play knight e8, knight d6 maybe. h4, bishop d7, h5, rook c8. And now, AlphaZero, ask Matthew Sadler what AlphaZero would do. Is this one of those AlphaZero moves, like h6? I think that's happened in this type of line. I mean, it's obviously very similar to a dragon. But the spatial implications of h6. Non-traditional way of doing it, though. It actually happens in the game. White's king b1 makes a lot of sense. So now e4. Yeah, because you want your bishop to be open. Oat House against Ann Woolley. Now e4 is a great move. And now white plays h6 novelty. Yeah, I can't play h6 here. So this one guy from 2016 lost after hg6, fg6, g5. White played g5. Oh my god. Wouldn't you guys think like bishop h6 would make some sense? I mean, it's clearly not fatal. You could take, queen takes, rook f7. Looks pretty dangerous for white, actually. Black's king is actually safer than white's king. Okay, so new idea, h6, bishop h8. See, the problem is this isn't, you know, it's getting in the game. It's getting in the game. It's not like it's blocked in by a pawn on e5. The only thing that benefits white is the back rank. But I don't think it's going to matter here. So, it's almost like black is like, it's almost like black, white, I mean, is being like materialistic. Like he wants to win the pawn on e4. But what about rook takes knight, you know? This is a very tempting move, bro, you know? I would find myself hard-pressed not to play rook takes knight because it's not only fun, it's fancy. It leads to total annihilation. I'm not sure. Gotta play rook takes c3 here. Riddle me that, Batman. No, maybe it's not enough. Let's see. Okay, b takes. And then we have to take here. And now the problem is, like Arsenal fans said, that the fun killer move. But still, man, it's a lot of craziness here. Bishop f5. The fuck is going on? Holy shit. This is incredibly complicated, guys. Incredibly complicated. Rook takes c3. It's the best move. It's the only winning move. Oh my god. So rook takes c3 is a winning move. Is my follow-up wrong? Oh. No. It's winning. Wow. It's winning. Bishop d4. e3. Stronger than bishop f5. Damn. So this is huge. Bear bully is followed. So Redusa misses this beautiful move. I mean, the thing is, you don't want your knight. The reason why you have to take on c3 now, you don't want your knight sidelined. Take out the knight now. And then if he takes here, it's nothing. Do whatever. Black could play almost anything in this position. Just move your rook somewhere. Go back. I mean, Can't you just do anything? You could sack the rook there if you want to be super fancy. That's really super fancy. Looks strong, too. Anybody who plays the dragon, good luck with this, man. Yeah, so you get a demerit for not playing rook takes c3. Knight h5. All kings Indian, no dragon. You know what I mean? White sacks the exchange on h5. Okay. I gotta be honest. This guy's incredibly lucky you didn't sack the exchange on c3 yourself. But why doesn't he, like, take here or something? Or maybe... I don't know. It looks reasonable to me. So this is, like, compared to your exchange sacrifice, way less effective. You take... And I thought he was aiming for this type of move. But maybe at this point this is okay. Alright. Maybe white has some compensation for the sacrifice exchange. True. White has a couple moves in a row. You know, bishop d4, bishop takes g7. So you have to be really careful now. Yeah, knight c4 doesn't give him time to play bishop d4. Plus you're on g5. He gives up his bishop. Okay, that's standard. Rook takes, preventing bishop d4. I would easily lose this for either side. But this move kind of kills him because it trades more pieces. Looks good. Yeah, too little, too late. But bishop d4. That's like white's whole idea, no? To play bishop d4. Are you like knight g? I don't think knight g3 is too slow. I think. It's too slow. Here. We have to be careful here. I mean, maybe this is not going to work either. It's probably not enough. Either way. Plays knight d4. Doesn't do anything. Yeah, okay. Now you get the e4 pawn. Rook takes c3, queen takes c3, queen e4 check, king a1. And, you know, you're winning. You're clearly better. Oops. Wow. White thought he's winning. So did I. Queen takes e1. Bishop takes d4. Oh no. Oh no. And you have rook e2. Oh my god. No, I mean it's this, no? It doesn't work? Isn't this the answer? Rook e2. So you didn't play rook e2 in time pressure? Right. We're winning, right? Rook e2, queen c1, bishop takes b2 check. King b1, bishop f5. It's over. Queen a5. Mate. No. Queen c1, bishop takes b2. We're just taking. We're taking here. Check. We're up a piece. It's over. We're not taking your queen. We're taking the bishop. Oof. But he played bishop e3. Does that even work? I don't think this even works. White's like winning now. Oh my god, dude. This is the only winning move. You want to see something crazy? Bishop takes b2 is a draw. You had 36 seconds left to a minute 18 and didn't play rook e2. Now White's winning. That's the problem with blitz and bullet chess, you know, ultimately. And Black lost. Ugh. All right. Down the shitter on the time. So Varuzhin is black. This is from the U.S. Open. Depends on what you play. I played Varuzhin twice. I was black in both games. I drew him twice. We had two different, like, Kings Indians. I've never been white against him. That was a long time ago, though, when he was just a young muppet. I always found him to be he's a little bit egotistical and arrogant. I don't know. He seemed like a nice guy when he was younger, but then he acted like he was like a super GM, which I thought was kind of weird. No big deal. He's all right. Knight f3, d5, e3. I never thought he was that strong, honestly. Like the Vladimir Kopian, I mean, he was like 2,700, bro. This is a real Kopian, but he's old now, you know. Varuzhin was no 2,700 FIDE, man. He's a really solid player. Very, very strong in endgames. Very, very solid. But I'm not like afraid of him, you know. I wouldn't be afraid of him as a player. I was surprised he got as high rated as he did because his style really isn't that aggressive, you know. Because he is kind of solid. Very good at playing, he's very good at playing like the French. Yeah, he's an endgame grinder, very much. So he played bishop f5 here. That's disappointing. The London system, God. All right. So bishop e2 and then e6. That's a really disgusting thing to play with black for a GM. Now you played knight h4. So I don't know the theory of this well enough to say if you should play knight h4 or not. I do know that it is an idea. I mean, what would I do? Well, I mean, you're simply playing a reverse London system. I don't know. You know, sometimes I'll go with knight. It's a little early for knight h4, though. He's going to play h6 if you don't play it. So if you play like bishop e2, yeah, h6 is the next move. But I don't think you're obligated in any sense to play. Asterby can play bishop d3. Go reverse Magnus. I would just play like bishop e2 or even maybe c4, standard London stuff. All right. Anyway, this is provocative, man. I mean, I feel like this is a provocative way to play against a stronger player, a little. But if you know what you're doing, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, if it's not Varuzhin, maybe they'll play something like bishop g6. But unlike most, you see, like Gormley has a game here with bishop g6, but Gormley is kind of aggressive. Whereas most players would avoid maybe simplifying the position. Varuzhin doesn't mind because he likes endgames so much, you know. He's perfectly happy to play an equal position. Bishop g4, bishop e2. So bishop e2, queen takes e2. Everybody's happy. Like, you're the low-rated player. You swap pieces against a stronger player. But unlike most stronger players, he doesn't mind trading pieces. Now, I'm a little bit shocked by the statistics here. Because there's no way that black should be, like, never losing a single game after c5. Notice how Nakamura won a couple of games. So the top 3 games are all decisively won for white, yet black's overall score is positive. Well, I think the truth is the position is relatively equal. Your knight is on the side of the board, though. No. So we need to either bring it back immediately or play f4 and bring it back. So Firouzjan plays the move that has the best score, c5. Notice. The problem is you're playing an opening that strong players don't play that much. You know, a Nimzo Larsen, or whatever. Queen's Indian in reverse. So Marcus Harvey and Rahman, and none of these guys are that great. They're okay. But I think you should seriously consider bringing your knight back unprovoked. This is safer. Remember, you're playing a grandmaster, you know. So f4, very aggressive. Probably not a bad move, but I would be careful. Knight c6. Now castles. And now bishop e7. Black could castle either side. I don't know. I feel like playing the way you played this is probably fine against a lower rated player. But I'm concerned that it might be a bit too aggressive against someone like Firouzjan. But maybe you don't factor that kind of thing in. I'm very, like, thinking about, like, the opponent. I don't know what black should do here. Yeah, he's not so likely to castle queenside. So bishop e7. And this is following this game from 2019. Fridman actually, ironically, has a very similar style to Firouzjan. He's also very kind of grindy and plays stuff like this. French defense. Yeah, looks like you played it correctly, but d3 is not obligatory. Another possibility. White has to keep this in mind because ultimately, you know, this isn't a safe move at all. And I know I sound like Marge's sisters, but a move that one should think of. Anyway, knight f3 is safest. That's what Marcus Harvey played. And I don't think the Fridman won because of the opening. It should be a draw. But I think if you want to draw a stronger player, you probably shouldn't play f4. Honestly. You know, like, at all. Here, this is a way safer way of playing this position. I think part of the thing is, like, you put the pressure on the opponent. They have to beat you. Remember, you're a low-rated guy, so the pressure on him. It's not necessarily playing for a draw, but you can put psychological pressure on the opponent. You know, the safer you play, you're leveraging the threat of a draw against a stronger player. You know, he wants you to take chances and make mistakes. So bishop e7, d3. This is a solid move. Castles. Wow. So Nakamura and Matlakov had exactly the same position, and Matlakov castled and lost. But Firouzjan goes d4. So this is a major moment now. Remember that his bishop is restricted by his own pawns, which is good for white. Damn. So what's his idea here? e4, knight takes e4. If you try to play e4, oh my god, that happened. So it's unclear. You have some kind of compensation. But again, he has you, like, He has you, like, taking risks. You shouldn't be taking risks here. So how serious is black's threat now? The problem is that it looks actually pretty good. This knight d5, no matter what you do, Matlikov may have overlooked this move. Well, he definitely did. So had you played knight f3 first, castle, then d3, and now d4, and now the problem is what? Here? How does Daniel Friedman beat this young player in this game? He played b5. Wow. Not super convinced. So what's the threat? Knight d2, knight d7. White played c3. A risky move. Alright, anyway. Similar situation with low-rated player. Maybe ends up taking risks against a stronger player. So this is a huge move. Okay, now, yeah, we need to seriously... I'm only playing e4 in the last resort. Do we have any other alternative? Knight a3, we're just fucked. Like, we can't do anything. Okay. And your other alternative to go here is just really ugly. Man, that sucks. So, just doesn't seem to be any options. That's horrible. d4 is really, really strong. You have to go for this. Takes. Your only hope is f5. If you take with the pawn, it only maybe loosens your position, but it's something to think about. No, here. You're just still you're still a clear pawn down. Yeah, this looks a little bit safer. He takes, and now you have to play f5 or you have nothing. All right. Interesting. I mean, you might have some legitimate compensation here. So f5, e5, and now knight d2. You have a very strong blockade on the white squares. This is a kind of bad bishop. But you got a French defense player who's expert with playing with bad pieces. Except he's used to having like a bad light square bishop. Now he has a bad dark square bishop. So we could play like a4, knight a3, knight c4. You play knight d2. Your knight can go to e4. But we got to watch the c2 pawn. His problem is that, okay, b7's under attack. This e4 is huge for you, a huge square here. Okay? Very specific move now, bishop g5. I'm a little surprised to see that. Naturally, knight c4, it's like he wanted you to do that. And now queen e7. I would be pretty optimistic here, you know, that you actually have significant compensation. Because it's going to be very hard for him to create a passed pawn. You know, how is he going to create a passed pawn? His extra pawn is the only way he can win the game. And he has a bad bishop. Yeah. But I'm thinking about a4. Maybe you should play a4 right away. I guess you don't need to. This is fine. All right. And then f6. Damn. As they say in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, we do not panic. You started to panic now. I know because I've been there like a million times. I think this is the point where, I'm very skeptical of H4. You have to be like rational about the situation. He can try to castle queenside. He might try to castle queenside. But if he does, he can also get into a lot of danger. So I was thinking maybe rook f3. I don't really like h4. It's too committal, He might be able to open your kingside up. So you have to think about him castling queenside. You have to be prepared for knight b4. So one option is a4. And I think it's good in a lot of cases, but it's also a little bit inflexible. It's nice if he castles queenside. Like say you go here and he castles queenside. It would be nice to play like a3 and b4, or have the ability to like maybe play for b4. If you play a4, you're probably never going to be able to play b4. So you're just playing like to lock the position. Like knight b4, yeah, I don't know. What he'll do, I don't know. Here, bishop a3. And he'll try to nibble away eventually. I don't know how. It's not easy. He probably would go for like a queen exchange, try to grind you down in an endgame. Well, let's see what happened. I don't like h4. This feels very committal and could backfire. Your king's over there. I like this move, like if your king is on b1. And even then, it's like committal. And now g4. So he castles queenside. g5. Yeah. You played really aggressively. F takes g5, knight takes c5, knight takes c5, queen takes c5, queen takes c5, rook takes c5. And now Varuzhin Akobian is faced with a choice. He doesn't save his c5 pawn. I'm definitely expecting him to play, but f6? Are you serious? You have like f6? So say he plays b6. What the hell is going on here? Are you going to just do bishop c1? You have bishop c1. Wow. So he has to drop his c5 pawn. And this is brutal because he doesn't want to put his king on b8. He would rather centralize. Check, king b8. Oh my god. So you're down a pawn against a great endgame player. But his pawns are really messed up. Yeah, but this one on h4 is dangerous. He has bishop e3, check. So now you played f6. Well, we don't have a lot of time. I mean, he's going to come in. He's going to, come in. So something like... this have to be considered, though. We have to be considering king g2. But your move is way more aggressive. I don't know if it's good. If Arsenal fan says you better, you might be able to draw. Just take whatever evaluation Arsenal fan gives you and water it down. If he says you're worse, you're probably totally lost. You don't need any more optimism. He's already optimistic enough, Arsenal fan. King g2 is the best move. That surprised me. Maybe it is, but it's still not easy. So f6. Has white ever made? Oh, you did make a retreating move at one point. Like you played knight h4 to f3, right? All right. D takes f, rook takes f, check, and now king h2. Normally I wouldn't put the king on a light square, but here, because of the g file, okay. Rook c8. Now we knew he was thinking about this. When he gave up the c5 pawn, he's definitely thinking about that. So here you have a move. Well, you have another option too. Like you could play rook c4. In some cases, he'll have b5, of course. But it could alter the position slightly. Here. That's a surprising move. Rook f7. Oh my god. Holy shit. So he has this bishop f4 trick. You can't play rook. You did rook c7. You left him bishop f4. Holy shit. So what happens if you take an extra move? Let's start with rook b5. He has stuff like this now? No. Because then you get him with your own tactic, right? So he'll go b6, and then we go like here. And then we're threatening rook here. Well, I want to double the rooks on the 7th, personally. Rook hg8. Rook here. Are you getting mated? No. That's really sad, man. I don't know. I don't believe you're lost here. I can't believe it. But I've been known to believe the impossible. Feels like, I mean, Arsenal's fan, of course, Arsenal fans' suggestion is, of course it might be best. Of course it might be a good move. It makes sense. I mean, his extra pawn is a doubled pawn. Deviled pawns. You might be able to hold this. I don't believe you're lost. What's wrong with my rook b5? It's a draw. But I was thinking here. Rook hg8. So we missed something. Wow. So rook dd7. You can still go to h1. Oh my god. It is a draw. You just can't go up. Oh shit. That's mate. So you could actually go back. And there's no mate that way. And he would take on c2. Now bishop d6 check. King c8. And now, can you play... you're going to get mated with rook g1. So this isn't easy. I mean, check. You have to trade rooks. Check. Takes. But I think at this point we can see. Wow. So you got this far. It's basically a drawn position. And you played rook c7. And he has bishop f4. Now you figure this still might be enough, and you might be right. Wow. Jesus Christ. That's unbelievable. US Open nightmare. So rook takes h4 is a draw, right? I'm not certain it's the best move, but okay. He goes here. Now, you don't have to take on d4. But you can't play c4. En passant is definitely not an option. What I was thinking was that maybe you should try a4. Let him take the pawn with check, go up. He'll probably go to c3. You take on d4. He takes here, and it's a theoretical draw. Now he will try to torture you here in what has got to be a drawn position. But that's the simplest way to handle it. You took, he took, check. Basically the same thing happens, except you end up with a b pawn. I don't know where you're going with king f4 though. This has got to be a draw. But if there's any crafty way of winning it, Firouzja will play for it. If you lose your b pawn, I'm not so sure. But I don't know why, I still like the a4 better. Why do I like this better? a4, rook takes check, king g3, rook here, rook takes, he has to take. I mean, our a pawn is protected, but let's say king f3, king b6. He might be able to surround that pawn. King e2, king a5, king d2. For example, rook b4, rook here, king takes a4. And that's scary. So maybe your variation is better. Better to keep the b pawn. Alright, rook takes d4. There's nothing else we can do, right? a3, b4, doesn't make any sense. Here. But I don't know why here. Why not here? It would give you... I don't think there's any advantage necessarily in like putting your king on e5. Maybe. Okay. Maybe you could try to advance your d pawn. Yeah. Alright. King f4. I can see it. I can see it now. There is the problem where he could try to cut you off. That's still probably a draw. Can you go here? Should be a draw. What is this message I'm getting? Oh no, Asterbate. Alright. So king f4, here, here. Check. So if rook b4, a6. If rook b4, b6 or a6, I don't know. I don't really like rook b4. I don't really like what you did. But actually what you did might be okay. Because you could check him again, right? You just check him again. So rook c4 check. It's non-committal. Your king is like, 3 moves from a clear draw. If you get to c3. He goes to d6. So if you were to play, let's say you were to play like rook b4. He could play b6. But objectively, b4 should probably hold. Yeah, alright, so I'm going with b4. coming back here. His king is cut off. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, b4 looks best. You know, at first I wanted to go here, but then it's like, it goes king c6 or b6 maybe. But if you go b4 with his king cut off here, I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, all he can really do is like try to play b5. But you go check. He goes back, but who cares, you know? You can't get to your pawn. So this is an easy draw. So instead you played rook c3. Now, I imagine that he's going to play b5, yeah. And now it looks like d4. Only move, b4. Now where? Problem is he has rook takes and like rook there if you try to go in front of his a pawn. So you can't draw with like rook c5, rook a5. You're going to have to move your rook laterally. And this is really, really passive. I'm not sure you have another option, but I think you need to consider, you know, maximum activity. So, well, I mean, all options are on the table here. Even rook c8, rook takes b3. I'm afraid you might be losing there, but it's not so simple, you know. But I think this here, what if you play like rook a7 or something? You're lost. Shit. If anybody would play this kind of technical rooking game perfectly, it'd probably be Varuzhin, you know. But I still don't believe this is lost. It doesn't feel like enough edge. b4, rook takes b4, check. If you play d4, maybe d4 is actually a big mistake. What if you go with your king instead? Wouldn't it be better to get your king over here, jettison that pawn? I'm curious about this. Is this lost? You're almost in the square. It's like rook c1, rook takes b3, rook a1. You're one square away. Shit. Is everything lost here? King d4? Yeah, that's unbelievable. Very, very small margin for error, though. Wow. That's sick, man. That's sick. You literally made like one mistake and you lost on b5. There usually would be some kind of draw here. Down a pawn or something. b4 is an easy draw. Rook c4 was best move. Ironically, you could even check him again. He goes to c5, you check him again. He goes to like b5, and you're still drawing. This is kind of weird. Here, rook c3. This example would be a draw. Still, it would be difficult, but man, that's brutal. Wow. That's a tough one. Yeah, I really thought like it's still probably not lost. What about king f4 versus king f3? I don't know why, you know. I feel better about king f3 than king f4. It's very weird. They're almost identical according to the engine. It just feels like safer somehow to play king f3. There might be some variation where his rook moves and you can go king e3, king d2 back. Or you might go up here. If your king goes to e3, you can go either way, that way or that way. What you need to do is get back over to your pawn. I don't know. You know, this is like a more aggressive move. It's still a draw. Rook b2. Yeah. And now, even rook a4 is a draw. Rook a4, a6. Rook b4, b6. Only this move loses. Well, not only this move. Man, that's tough. That's tough. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And you played pretty, like, I think pretty fearlessly in that game. You weren't, like, playing for a draw against him. You were playing your game, and in fact, I thought you were a little too aggressive, probably, but your position was good enough. Anyway, tough one. Thanks, guys, for submitting the games. Interesting stuff today. I'll be back tomorrow with some Blitz. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Yeah, Mule Skinner, congratulations. But I'll be back Friday with some Blitz. Mule Skinner getting over 1,900 FIDE. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks for your support. I'll see you Friday. Simul on Sunday. Have a great weekend. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. Thanks, Smirmster, and everybody.